Okay, can I have your attention, please? We'll call the meeting to order at 1:30. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Commissioner Gossick Sideman,
Present.
Vice Mayor Moore,
Present.
Mayor Hillman,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie.
Present.
And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and afterwards, can we just have a moment of silence for our neighbors on the southwest coast that have lost their lives and have problems? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Does anyone have any additions or deletions for the agenda? If
I have a
not,
brief one, Mayor.
Go ahead.
If we could just discuss briefly the Barrier Island hurricane preparation, because when I look at those adopted by FEMA and those promoted by Red Cross and so forth, I think there might need to be a higher level of evacuation. How would you say, procedures or just
Sure.
tips for people on Barrier Islands? It's a different level.
Yep.
So I put together a few notes and then we could discuss it, maybe have our chiefs look at it.
Why don't we put it right at the end of new business? Call it item C for Charles.
Great, thank you, sir.
Anything else? Can we have a motion then?
I move we accept the agenda as corrected.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the presentation that was scheduled has been postponed to a future date. So we'll move on to public comments. Anybody have a public comment? Once, twice, gone. Okay, we'll close public comments. Announcements, board vacancies. There is one vacancy for a 3-year term for the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Upcoming meetings and events. October 6th is Natural Resources Preservation and Advisory Board at 9:30. October 10th is Town Hall is closed. Observation for Columbus Day. October 11th at 1 o'clock is a Code Enforcement Board regular meeting. October 13th at 9:30 is the Planning Board meeting, and October 18th is at 1:30 is the Town Commission meeting. There are no ordinances, there's no consent agenda, there's no unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. And that is the Police Department's Accreditation Certification by Chief Hartman. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mayor, Commissioners, this afternoon, just want to give you an update on the status of our accreditation recertification. As you know, Highland Beach Police Department is an accredited law enforcement agency. And what that means is through the state, the Commission on Law Enforcement Accreditation, they certify you that you meet all of the standards and benchmarks that they set at the state level in your agency. It's not something that's mandatory for police departments. All your bigger agencies, your premier agencies, FDLE, everybody is accredited. It's rarer that the smaller agencies our size are even accredited because of what it takes in the involvement and the commitment to something like that. But why we do it and why it is important, because we're measured against everything that the state has set as the standard for all your policies, training, protocols, procedures, general orders, everything that you do, we meet those benchmarks. And to become accredited, you have to apply. We did that 6 years ago, was the first time that we started this process, that we knew the value to it to become accredited. We got our accreditation certification the first time that year. And then the part of the process is every 3 years, you are reassessed and they come in and they do a purposeful intrusion into your agency, and they look at everything that you do. We've had assessors that came here this last time, 2 days, a sergeant from Leon County, lieutenant from Kissimmee, and lieutenant from Miami-Dade. These are assessment professionals that come and do this around the state, and they spent 2 days with us, looked at all of our policies, all of our training, all of our protocols, our proofs to show that what we have in place, we do what we say we do. So it's a very involved process. They rode with our officers, they looked at our equipment. And at the end of the 2 days, they left here and gave us a glowing report, and in their words, a flawless audit, which was very impressive. Wasn't that way our first audit. We learned things from that part of that process, and we became better. So we were very, very thrilled to be able to have that assessment from them and our agency, and how complimentary they were of our officers. It's funny, one of our officers, as they rode with them, one of the other assessors needed to talk to somebody, realizing there was only a few people here. The officer came back into the room and said, "Hey, does anybody else want to talk to me before I leave?" So that's kind of rare in our world. People hide from the assessors because they're being afraid to ask tough questions that they may not be able to answer. So they were certainly very impressed, and I think it speaks volumes about our department and how we were prepared for that. So they essentially passed us. We should have been receiving our formal certification certificate today or tomorrow, scheduled on the West Coast. Obviously, Ian had different plans for everybody in the state that was getting certified tomorrow. So that process for us will happen and get our piece of paper in February of next year. But because we just went through this, we really wanted to take advantage of it, share that with you and our community. It's a big deal for us, and it should be for everybody else involved, because it sets a standard for the agency. Everybody in our world recognizes the value of being an accredited agency. When they deal with you, they understand the commitment that it takes to do that. And it should be comforting for you to know that your police department operates on the same level, same standards, and held to the same accountability as the biggest, busiest entities in the law enforcement arena in the state. So we're proud of that. We're glad we got that accomplishment again this year. And I want to recognize really the key person that gets us through this, that got us started in all of this. And that's Eric Aronowitz, our training coordinator and manager for accreditation and training. We started this process long before that, 6 years, 2 or 3 years before that, actually. So we know what it takes to get an agency ramped up to do that. And that was all on Eric. He prepared the agency, the training, the protocols, the policies, the proofs, the things that we would need to reach that benchmark and achievement. And he's been doing that now for us for all this time. It's a lot of work. It's one of those things that you don't see it. It's not glamorous. It's not something that ends up in the Coastal Star. But what he does behind the scenes allows us to be good and do the good things we're doing in this community. There's an important piece to what we do behind that scenes on all the accountability that we are responsible for, to the regulatory processes that govern us, to our Department of Law Enforcement, so many of those entities that oversee what we do. And that's critical. And they realize when they're dealing with us, professional agency that we have, how we meet all those standards. It's not always happens in some of the smaller environments. We're very fortunate to have some of the expertise that we have here with a couple of decades of experience. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that good things don't just happen because we show up on a call and smile and keep the community safe. There's so much behind what we do day in, day out, and these guys do behind the scenes that keep us on line with everything we should do and out of the spotlight on things you don't want to be recognized for. So for us, that's a very important accountability piece that we do. And I want to make sure that we know that for Eric. And I have a commendation for him for the work that he's done. Eric, can you come up here? In recognition of outstanding achievement in successfully leading the Highland Beach Police Department through a reaccreditation process in 2022 to Eric Aronowitz. So thank you, Eric, so much. It's only a part of what he does. He's got a lot of responsibilities here for us, and he really makes things go behind the scenes. So procurement specialist, CS2. So really good stuff. And if you indulge me 1 minute to just add somebody else to this list, our IT provider, Mark Rutledge, we've been using him for a lot of years. We've been using him in the police department for a really long time. I think everybody started recognizing what he brings to the table, and the town brought him on board as the IT provider for the town. We really can't say enough good things of what Mark does for this agency. He has multiple municipalities. He has all the criminal justice information clearances that you need to operate in the several different police departments that he provides for. So we get a real subject matter expert that not only understands what's going on here, he understands what's going on all around the county and the other jurisdictions. He comes to the table, he knows what he's talking about. We involve him in different projects and programs, and everybody realizes we've got subject matter expert at the table. We infused him into a meeting at the county level on an information sharing exchange project that they had going on for the whole county. And it was the very first meeting, they realized he was the smartest guy in the room and incorporated him into that meeting. And he basically took over that. So that's the kind of expertise that we have here. And I think what's comforting for me to be able to say as the chief is I can say great things, and I'll always say great things about them, but it's these processes and regulatory process from the outside that look at us and evaluate us, and our FDLE audits and the IG's office, all those things that are flawless, our security systems that govern our databases that are critical for us. We don't even think twice about them because of what we have built behind the scenes and the people that we have involved in this process. That's very comforting. I can tell you from my position, know that these kind of people run this stuff every day, do a great job of it. It's a pleasure to work with them. He's a pleasure to work with on top of all his brilliant IT stuff. So it's a great team to have on our side. And I want to give Mark a commendation for what he does for us and how he gets us through all these processes. Mark. In recognition for outstanding achievement in providing technical support and expertise to the town of Highland Beach Police Department, to Mark Rutledge. Thank you, Mark. Proud of what these guys do. Thank you for the support that you guys give us, and certainly the town and what they do and get behind this. Very encouraged where we're going. I've been able to spend some time with new fire chief, Glenn Joseph. I can tell you he shares those same thoughts and sentiments and how to create that type of environment, culture. I think you're going to be in store for a lot of good things for years to come from the public service for this town. So thank you.
Great,
Appreciate
great.
it.
Hang on, chief. Hang on. There may be some questions or comments from here. So
Well, I certainly have a few comments. First of all, congratulations. It's clearly an example of your leadership. I think Eric and Mark and the rest of your team is recognized as being an outstanding police force. I can say that because I've talked to others in other towns where they're small towns and some mid-sized towns where their police forces are considered nothing more than a bunch of Boy Scouts or weekend guards. And that's not the case here. This is an organized police effort to operate at the highest levels of professionalism. And the accreditation is just nothing more than just another diploma on top of everything else. So I have two questions for you. One is, can you kind of give a summary of where the town is today relative to crime and problems? Because I'd also like, part two is comment on the notion that we're one of the safest communities in all of Florida. Is that true? And how do you see that fitting in?
So yes, that is a persona reputation that we've garnered from several publications, from statistics, crime reports, the FBI, UCR reporting. Certainly when you're void of violent crime in your jurisdiction, you start to rise to those type of level of reputation, and people recognize that. They study that. They realize that there's no crime. And it's something that we certainly understand. That's our role, is to ensure that we take that very seriously. So when something small does happen, you see kind of reaction that you get from our department. Our big focus is on prevention, right? So it's great that you can solve a crime, but that meant something had to happen. What you see them do is how we educate the community, how visibility, the patrols, what they do 24/7, weekends and holidays and overnight shifts when, they come creeping through your communities like they do every place. And we're no different here, but we're certainly vigilant on that piece to maintain that type of, because people don't expect anything bad to happen here. So we take that responsibility that it's very seriously, that we keep this community safe, and they value that.
And so your visibility is real obvious to everybody in the town. And that's mainly because of A1A. Can you give us an update on what's happening on intercoastal and maybe the ocean?
Sure. Really, A1A is the nexus to everything through town. There are entrance and access points. We monitor that and watch that through our license plate recognition cameras. So that's one way that we maintain that type of criminal element to be able to keep them out. We know what's coming in. We know when cars with wants or warrants are in our community, and when they may come through, and we deal with it that way. So the beach, we can tell you that crime, again, we're void of that type of crime on the beach because it is a residential area from 3 miles. There is no public access, no way to get on our beaches in town without crossing through private property or coming in someplace. And the same thing with our neighborhoods. You'll see it, and commissioners can tell you, I think they see us just as much regularly and through there and on our patrols. And we don't see anything different level of type of crime, or we get the occasional getting into open cars, unlocked cars. We really don't have break-ins to cars. They check for cars that are open and they might find some property. But yeah, we're void of the violent crime.
Intercoastal?
No issues. No, as far as you're talking about as far as
Marine.
No, yeah, and we've been spending more and more time out there, and we've starting to see less and less of the speed. It's a process. It's an education type thing. They haven't seen any enforcement out there for a couple of decades, so now all of a sudden they never realize when they're going to come across us. We've had FWC out there with us on more occasions than we've ever had before. So obviously they've been much willing to come to the table, more so now than they've ever been, because we have a boat. They're out there with us. So running these operations and being out there, being visible, doing boat safety checks, intervention, those type of things. We end up getting more boats that are stuck in intercoastal for some reason and helping them get to the sea tow and everything else. So we had a few of them. I think the commissioner witnessed one of our ones the other day. So yeah, it's been good. Good.
Well, again, congratulations to you and your team. Outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you. You protect us. You keep our town. You're right. Prevention. You don't want to have to solve a crime. It's better that it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
And we're very proud of the fact that our town is safe, and I lay that at your door, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to relate a message I sent to the chief and marshal last week. A 4 outboard, deep drafting, huge cabin cruiser flew by my house doing 40, 45 knots. 10-foot wave washes up on my deck. I happened to be there. 10 seconds later, here comes our boat, siren lights, chasing this guy. It's just like on I-95 when a Porsche passes you doing 100. And it made my day. They are out there. Our speeds are down. Our safety people know. I actually see the Boca Raton police boats way more often now. I think they've got the message. So thank you, Chief, and thank you to the whole department.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. And I mean, I can definitely speak for myself, and I think for all of us, this is exactly what we want. These type of accreditations. I think the investment in the background work, I mean, I can definitely appreciate that. And I think that is exactly in line with what it is that we want and the vision for our community. So, and I think that's another one of the huge benefits of having our own police force is to be able to carry out that vision for us. So I think that's really excellent. I guess one question I have, are there some improvements that you know, as excellent as you guys are there some improvements that you see coming up?
So, yes, to answer your question, what we do is always, how are we looking or critical and looking inward? What can we do better? Our self-improvement. We're always looking at the latest and greatest technology. Mark has been actually instrumental. We're working on some things right now on how we can enhance some of those type of monitoring systems. Much talk between myself and the fire chief already on how we're going to grow our services, our responses. All week long, we've been talking about the West Coast. So Commissioner, you're right on board there. We're pulling information. We know we already want to make those next steps and things. These are the kind of things that gets everybody's attention. It's been a long time. It's very fresh. It's very relevant. We've already a lot of discussion on how are we going to use that to our advantage moving into next hurricane season. We know people on the West Coast that we want to go over and talk to once this all clears. Kind of lessons learned type of thing. We know that's going to be out there. That's going to be critical. So yeah, there's a lot going on. We are always looking at what we can do better. Our hiring processes, Eric's setting up NeoGov for the town on the way we're bringing in more and better applicants of what we're looking for. So there's always that look at how do we get better? What can we do and improve on the things that we're doing now? So we're there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Well, we love our police in this town. Absolutely. Congratulations to Eric and to Mark. It's wonderful to hear these kind of reports and to see people that are singled out for excellent work. I had the opportunity to meet two of the, what are they called, inspectors that
Yeah.
come down.
Assessment team. Yes, that's right. You were here. Yeah.
And just as I was leaving after chatting with him for about 10 minutes, whoever the senior person was, I don't recall the names. He just took me aside and he said, you know, it's a pleasure to be working with this group here. He said, they are so prepared, they have their act together, and it's very unusual that we have the opportunity to work with people like this. So I passed it on to you, but I want everybody to hear that. Nice to hear that from somebody that's inspecting our organization. Okay. So everything he's telling you is absolutely correct. I'm sure that document will arrive whenever, but you don't need the document to know.
No, we passed and we're there. So
No,
proud
we're very proud of you and of the organization. Just keep up the good work. It's terrific.
thank you. I get to stand
Thank
up
you.
here for you, but the team that really day in, day out that does that. And we're fortunate to have the group that we have. So thank you.
Chief, it's always a team effort, never one person.
Even the town manager is very helpful. I will tell you that. So we're not going to take all that credit for it. He gets stuff done for us. So we
He
appreciate it.
helps out every now and then.
That's for
Yep.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, could we get a photo? Excuse me, could we get a photo of the police?
Yeah,
team
sure. Yeah,
With
absolutely.
the commission and for the manager's minute and whomever else would love it.
That'd be a nice piece in
Goes-
the monthly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
please.
Want to stand
And
over
their
here?
certificates and their big
Thank you.
smiles. Yes, sir.
Come on over in the center.
Yeah, our colors all go together this time too. How is that? Pretty good.
Just squish into my neighbor here.
You okay? You got everybody?
Thank you all. Wait, we didn't get.
What happened to the rest of your gang?
Yeah, wait, we didn't get that.
They don't count. All right. You bet. Well, believe it or not, we're moving on now to approve 3 different minutes. The minutes of September, there's 2 minutes on September 6th. If you recall, we had 2 meetings on one afternoon, and then September 11th. I noted one thing on the first meeting of September 6th. That was on page 13. Under item 14, town manager's report, the second sentence, the town was awarded 2, that should be TWO, not TO. Anybody else have anything on the first meeting of September 6th?
Yes, sir, on that same paragraph.
Okay,
Interestingly enough, it should be legislature, TURE. Right, please.
okay, got that? Anything else on that meeting? Let's move on to the second meeting. I had something on page 16. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. On item 6A, the motion, there's no note of what the vote was.
Right, and-
You got it? Okay, that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything on the second meeting on the 6th?
No, sir,
Okay,
no.
the meeting of the 21st. Does anybody have a note on that meeting? No,
No,
if not, we need a motion for all 3.
I move that we accept all 3 draft minutes.
All, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to the item that we added. That's Barrier Island preparation for hurricanes, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, right before Ian was forecast to hit the state, it just reminded me of Hurricane Andrew in 1992. I was living here and it was forecast that morning to hit Boca Raton. I don't know if everyone knows that. So everyone's putting 40 ropes on their boats. Anyway, it turned at the last minute and hit Homestead, as everyone knows. This was a similar situation where Tampa was evacuated. I thought that would be the landfall. And of course, prevailing winds shoved it further south. This happens time and time again. Another note was Hurricane Floyd. I don't know why I have a memory for these things. Floyd turned at the last 2 hours, turned north. It would have been a Cat 5 hitting Delray Beach. So it occurred to me that the Barrier Island people or even coastal people maybe need a higher level of preparation. And this is something our chiefs could really follow up on. But for example, we keep a packed bag with several days clothes. We keep prepared documents, an extra set in a Ziploc bag, an extra supply of pet food. And there's just little things you can do that can maybe make your evacuation quicker and easier in times of hurricane turning or even just imposing themselves on your area. You just never know if something can hit somewhere between Daytona and Miami. They can shift as this just did. So maybe there needs to be a higher level of preparation and tips for people in this area. And these are just a few. You know, if you're in a parking garage, move your car higher than the first floor. Maybe take a safe room, and if you're in a second floor and above in a condo or home, have a safe room where you can put your important documents and keepsakes, perhaps an interior bathroom or closet. And these are just some things that I sort of worked up: a go bag with chargers and a zip drive, you know, with your computer on it. But I think we need to rethink the difference of coastal and inland. So I just made a few notes late the other night, and I can send forward those to Marshall and the chiefs and see if we can talk it through today and maybe come up with a little higher level plan for us.
Good idea. Yeah. And, we can send that out every year because people aren't going to remember. So we should, every single year, beginning of hurricane season. I mean, we do send stuff out, but expanding on it certainly can help.
Yes, sir. And
Absolutely.
also with the new residents, 1,000 a day moving to Florida, there are those who probably don't understand the calamity that can occur when you don't evacuate and you're not ready. I mean, it's easier to grab a bag and a plastic bag and go than plan, oh, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? Without being overly dramatic. It just helps to be overly prepared.
Yeah, you're 100% right. No
So I
question.
don't know if you all have any thoughts on that.
I'd like to turn the conversation to a different point for hurricanes, and that is our dunes and our seawalls. I know it's a subject that we keep saying we're going to have to attack. We're going to have to attack. Now, the natural resources group is attacking it, and that's on their agenda, I guess, day after tomorrow. I went through what they're planning to do. I think it's a really good effort, but I think we need to be supporting them more. Okay, whether it's more help in terms of what they're doing and how to do it, and financially. Because the dunes are the only thing going to protect us from this wall of water that obviously came in on the West Coast. And God forbid, it can happen here. So I think we need to put more weight behind educating and helping our landowners to protect their dunes. And if they did the things like, I forgot what the gentleman's name is that lives here in Highland Beach, I guess on the north side, that is like the dune expert. We saw his presentation about a year ago. Jack? You know what I'm talking about, Marshall?
Mr. Belmonte?
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. If they did those things, not only would the dunes hold where they are, they will grow because it's going to capture more sand that blows, and our dunes will get higher and higher. So it's clearly the right thing to protect the town as well as the landowner. So I think it's, from a financial standpoint, I think it's worth our while to get involved as well. So I don't have a plan. I'm just planting the seed, if you will. The other thing is our seawalls. And I know we have, I forgot exactly what the formula is. So we have addressed that, but we've addressed that only when you are repairing or replacing your seawall. And I hate to say this because we're spending somebody else's money, and it's spending my money too. But I think we need to address the whole seawall height issue when you're not repairing your seawall. Now, maybe it's a 10-year plan or 15-year plan, whatever it is time-wise. Perfect. Your timing could not have been better. We're talking about seawall heights. Okay. But I don't think we can keep putting it off. So I think we need to put that on our agenda. So both of these items, I think, need to go on our agendas. That's all I have to say about hurricanes.
Mayor,
Unless anybody disagrees.
No, well, I have
Mayor.
something to say too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just wanted to follow up and say we could actually ask someone from DEP to come in and discuss the mangroves because they have a very specific plan.
Well, there you are, though. I left that off,
But
but
have
of
them-
course,
Yeah, have them come in
Yeah.
and speak to the commission. And
mangroves need to go on this plan as well, because
Yeah.
there are areas that are mangrove, not
Yeah.
seawall. Yep,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
We need to learn from this. We need to understand there is no absolute path. It changes. It's only a suggestion. You can't count on it landing where they say it's going to land. You can't count on it getting smaller as opposed to bigger. You can't count on any of that. So you may leave 4 times for nothing, but you better leave that 5th time too, because it may be something. And we're very foolish if we don't learn from what happened. Chief Joseph, they had a flooded fire station
Oh.
and therefore unusable vehicles.
In Naples.
How do we protect against that?
We take,
Can we protect against that?
we take ours off the island.
There you go. That's exactly
Okay.
what we need to do.
Yeah,
That's,
we do.
that's fine. I mean, and that makes sense to me. That you don't want to leave it where it's in danger of being immobilized, and then you can't help anybody when everything starts going down.
Not only that, but the cost of replacing it after it's exposed to salt water is.
Oh, salt water and yeah,
So we've talked about that this week with the chief and the city manager and the town manager, sorry. And the plan will be to remove, depending on the size of the storm, obviously, and what the expected storm surge is going to be. We'll be able to remove them off the island until.
well, yeah, I
after the
mean,
storm.
it doesn't take much to get it off the island. It's not,
No, it's very, and if you don't do that, then there's some serious consequences.
oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that horrified me. I think we need to let people know if they say go, go. You know, you may think that you're safe, but you aren't necessarily. And even hurricane impact windows can break.
Yes, they do.
And I've seen shutters ripped off. And then if you have shutters and hurricane impact windows and the shutter is ripped off, then you create a vacuum and then your windows are subject to being broken.
Absolutely.
And strange things happen. I know during Wilma in my building, one of the windows, they weren't hurricane impact at the time, but they did have shutters. One of the windows broke and a piece of glass went flying and it sheared off the head of the sprinkler system. Well, there was 11 floors of dirty water because it just kept running. And of course, they had a manager who decided she had to wait for the fire department to shut it off. Several of the unit owners took matter in their own hands and figured out how to shut it off. But strange things happen, things that you never expect to happen. And it's better to be prepared. I mean, Peggy is absolutely right. What's the big deal of putting some non-perishable food and some clothing in a bag so that you don't panic? That we generally have noticed that something is coming. They may not know exactly where it is, but they know something is coming. So prepare, just keep it on the side. And so you're not surprised when it's, okay, let's get out. It just turned, it's gonna hit here, leave.
Gotta have a plan.
Yeah,
Everybody-
you have to have a plan. And unfortunately, we can't force people to leave. People who want to stay, that there's nothing that we can do to force them. But they should bear in mind that if they stay and there is a major problem, you're then putting other people's lives at risk when they have to come rescue you.
If the rescue occurs, because
If-
it could happen days.
Well,
hours,
that's it,
days.
but rescue may not be that day. It could be 2 or 3 days later.
No, all the chiefs stay.
Yeah,
That's part of the chief's responsibility.
yes.
We're on it.
But, you know, it's a two-pronged thing. And there are shelters, and I know no one really wants to go to a shelter, but they are available. And take advantage of them.
You're 100%.
Question? All right.
Yes, you're going ahead.
So Chief, I don't go anywhere. So I understand, obviously, when I saw the video about Naples and the fire trucks, that was unbelievable. But so where will both the fire and police take their vehicles?
So we're rewriting the comprehensive operations plan, emergency management plan. The chief and I both are in the process of rewriting that now, and that will be identified in the
Okay, but
plan.
is there an identified location where you're going to take these vehicles?
We have some suggestions, but we don't have a location yet.
Okay, that's, I think, a key issue. Common sense, take them off the island, but where you're gonna put them and have them that prearranged so you can stage them.
Best case scenario is the elevated parking structure. And so we have some partners on the mainland that will allow us to put some of our vehicles there. But we want to put them above the ground level, like the Commissioner was saying, and have them somewhere so they're
Mhm.
protected from directly from the wind.
And with the new train station in Boca, I assume Boca is gonna, claim a lot of that territory, but have you looked at that?
It's level.
Yeah, well, the Boca Town Center Mall has a lot of up parking. There are
No,
some places.
No, at the train stations, the new.
They'll figure it out.
The point is that to have an identified location.
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll get it.
I really thought about this quite a bit, made a lot of notes, I was gonna talk about it in my own comments, but let me go back to building certification. So this isn't necessarily you, but you're gonna be involved. We are fortunately ahead of the game and have been on building certification to prepare these buildings, not only for their structural problems, but frankly, also for their ability to withstand the kind of forces that we're seeing from Hurricane Ian. One issue, and I think I'm going to go to Jeff on this, is there is a notion, as I've learned, Jeff, that when an inspector, special inspector is done, and then the town comes out to review and inspect the requirement for whatever the permit is for, that if they've failed, okay, you'll just come back and recheck it, whether that's be 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and there's no cost to that. And I've said, look, that's not the case. You're going to pay for that. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
So, yeah, they are going to pay because the only time that we are going to go out and inspect is when they pull a permit to do the restoration. And as they fail inspection, there is a progressive re-inspection fee for
Exactly.
that, for each and every time that we go out. We will not be going out just arbitrarily to look at it when they don't have a permit. Maybe they're in the middle of working on their phase 2 inspections. But when they have a permit and there are required inspections for us during that restoration process, there will be re-inspection fees.
And those fees will increase depending on how many times you have to go back out there, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Which is what I've said, and I just wanted to make it as a matter of record here. And then also the windows seems to be a big issue here. That somehow the state is changing the rules. I don't know. Maybe you can help me out on this, Commissioner Justice Seidman. But in some condos, the windows and sliders are the responsibility of the owner to replace. I know that was the case in some condos that I was personally associated with. Yet there are other condos where the association say, oh, well, that's the association's responsibility. And the state, I think, is suggesting, I don't know how official it is that it always has to be the association's responsibility. Do we know what the fact is on that?
It was talked about last year. I don't know that it'll be brought up next session, but I think that we should talk about it from a town perspective, because I know Mr. Remus and I have discussed perhaps increasing the level of hurricane level for our required windows in town. But to require, where do you draw the line? You're the east of I-95, all buildings. It's a very big issue, and with property insurance and escalating and tripling, people have doubled and tripled in the course of 2 years. I don't know that you can throw the window issue in at the same time. We're
Well,
talking
One of the
major
things-
costs,
John, that's a contractual issue.
right?
You have to look at
That's
the
accurate, too.
documents.
The
for
bylaws.
each Individual building,
Well,
I
and
don't,
some of them, they'll go half and half with you.
Right.
But yeah, it's.
but supposedly a state was going to override that,
Well, but I
regardless of the
don't think-
bylaws, that it should be association.
I-
And I'm saying, no, it's still a responsibility of the owner. And the point is, we got to make sure these windows are hurricane proof. So even though it's not necessarily required in your certification, is that something that you
No.
can?
Time out, time out. It gets a lot more complex than that. As our attorney was saying, obviously it depends on the documents, as you
Right.
know. But also, it's not just, do you have hurricane glass windows? It's sliders primarily, as opposed to just windows. But it's also, do you have shutters? If you have shutters, do you then need hurricane glass windows? So it gets
Yeah.
complicated. And as Peggy was saying, the state may have been thinking about it or talking about it, but nothing yet has been done. If the state takes it over in terms of responsibility and dictates that, then they have to give a specific length of time, which would have to be rather significant because the cost is very significant. If that gets added to the current requirement, that goes beyond the recertification, that goes into reserve studies and reserve dollars, which is still very nebulous. And as we know, is being challenged by a number of different organizations. It is going to get rewritten to some degree. So I doubt that they're going to jump into that one so fast right away also.
Have you heard anything different on your end from your organizations?
None of this has been brought up with any of the organizations that I belong to. But you can rest assured that whenever there is a restoration program, it's when someone pulls a permit and they do have to, even to work on the structure, sometimes they have to remove a slider to do work. Before that slider goes back in, it's either one of two things happens. Either the engineer, special inspector who's in charge of the project, approves that being put back in place, that they feel it's good enough, or number two, the owners end up having to pull a separate permit to replace it to make sure it meets today's standards.
Okay.
So either way, it's covered.
And the reason why I bring it up, obviously on the east side, the glass is the first to go rather than the actual building falling down. And that's what also, as you're saying, it can kill people. So, okay, so that's one of the issues.
Let me say one other thing, and I just want to expand on what was being said by Peggy. Insurance is going to become a massive issue. Right now, it's a big issue. We all got hit with these big increases, but now there are going to be less insurance companies.
Mhm.
We already lost a ton of companies, like 20 something. Now we're going to lose more. Some are already insolvent. They're not going to be able to handle the claims. So
The West Coast right now.
the West Coast claims. So, but the state, we're going to be left with less insurance companies again. So we're going to have insurance issues, which dovetail back into, if you don't have hurricane glass, very few insurance companies are even going to cover your building.
All right.
Okay.
That's again, common sense. On the other side of that is the reserves issue, because if the association is responsible, they have to put money in reserves. And that's a big number.
However, and I've said this before, the recertification program, in my opinion, negates the requirement for reserves because you have to be recertified. And the majority of the buildings have to be recertified every 7 years.
Yeah. But
So if you have to be recertified, what do you need reserve studies for and reserves?
to pay for the fixes.
But you got to get recertified. So now why should government be dictating what you do with your money, how you come up with the money every 7 years to keep your building
I
certified?
hear your opinion. The issue is what the state will do, and it's
And the
all an open
state-
issue.
Even in the current state guidelines, it doesn't say that you need to start your your reserves, or you have to be fully reserved.
Well, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that the
Doesn't say-
state is saying that they want fully funded reserves. The issue is on pooled funding, how much and over what period of time? And does it include inflation or not? Right now, it doesn't.
Yeah,
So the whole thing's a mess.
None of that's in there. So it's still very
agree.
up in the air right now.
So moving on to other subjects.
And it doesn't say fully funded reserve.
No,
It just says reserves.
Okay. Anything that the town manager could add to that would be good in the future. If not, you're prepared to do that now relative to
I've written down a lot of notes for future agenda items and we can
Okay.
capture all these under on our agendas and get the appropriate information on.
There's a lot of conversation going on about reserves right now because there's rehab of buildings that's coming out of reserves. And so the question is how much to put back in, how much of the association fee is going to go up?
I might fall to the mayor's thinking a little bit in that I believe in next session, some folks are going to come out to modify that requirement in statute. Now, if it may take a couple of sessions because you have until 24 to finish the reserve study, and maybe that's part of their initiative is to get the reserve study to see what that liability is on the books for the state to determine how to address it. But I bet, the requirement for fully funded reserves and recertification, there has to be something that gives. But again, on top of all that, just kind of, speaking to our consultants there in Tallahassee, insurance, housing.
Yeah.
Insurance and housing, it's going to dominate
That's
session this year. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say one way or the other. I'm just saying it's a big bone of contention right now and everybody is arguing, debating about what's the right way to go. And yet the state hasn't weighed in on this. And so it's kind of a mess.
It is a mess. Excuse me, it is a mess. And by the way, it's only structural items that are covered in what they're supposedly requiring,
Which doesn't count glass.
not a structural item.
Yeah. Okay, so aside from that, here's another thing that I'd like to bring up that's related to this, because if you look at Sanibel or these other areas, look at the roads. The roads are wiped out. So if we have a breach of our barrier, I mean, we could lose A1A and have a breach, clearly. So here we have a program of spending almost $9 million to completely re-engineer A1A for Highland Beach. Forget about all the other towns and whatever else is happening, but $9 million just to re-engineer it for us, which includes moving the road in some sections, adding swales, making sure we have the right drainage. They finished that project in the south end, which I thought over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, it's an amazing job and how much money was invested in trying to put in that drainage capability. It was unbelievable, the magnitude of it. So the issue for me is we need to really embrace this opportunity from FDOT. And I understand there might be some complaints about it. I know that I've spoken to a couple residents who are all upset about the convenience. And I will say right now, you pay for it now or you pay for it later, and it gets worse later, right? But at the same time, having this project literally in front of us now, we're so fortunate because that better prepares us if we did have a direct hit, right? And then it dovetails to your comment, Mayor, about if we have a breach, that'll be because our dunes are weak, right? So we've got to do something to strengthen the dunes, strengthen A1A, so because we cannot lose A1A. Right? I mean, that's our main artery, right? So I would just ask you, Jeff, if it makes any sense that as you do these restorations, to make note of those buildings that they are doing nothing with glass, right? And they're not at least wind or hurricane proof at some rating, or at least know the ratings, because at some point it's going to change dramatically, especially when the state weighs in on this. But even if they don't weigh in positively, we need to embrace.
You have to add shutters to that discussion.
I
If they
understand.
don't have hurricane glass, do they have shutters?
And I have both. So I understand exactly what you're saying. I have shutters and I have.
Well, so do I. But if whenever the concern is when a building or an apartment doesn't have hurricane glass, if they have shutters, they're protected.
And if they don't.
If they don't have either,
Yeah, and
that's
that's really what I'm
then
asking.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
But that becomes a problem for the whole building, because if one apartment goes, the whole building is now in jeopardy.
And that's a problem for us as a town.
Yeah.
We cannot have these buildings that vulnerable that don't have glass or shutters that are windproof. Okay, not to beat that one anymore. Okay, FDOT, Triple R project, it's our windfall. What happened with that? Okay, the other thing is, I have to say I was impressed with both Mayor Weinroth and the commissioners for how they followed up on aid for the West Coast. At least I see an email and I see their communications that they're trying to do an awful lot. And I mean, I have to applaud that with the league. And I know our Commissioner Augusta Simon has acted with the league as well, that there's a lot of follow-up that's being done by government organizations, and I applaud that. Okay, the last thing is, yeah, I would reinforce what the mayor was saying about the Natural Resources Board, that it's really important. Their priority, number one priority should be, as the mayor's indicated, the preservation of our dune. That's our, seawall is the dune. Now, the other seawalls on the intercoastal side, we're going to look to you to help us go through a discussion that is going to be very difficult, but it needs to be said and done. Building codes and zoning is another one that's going to fall out from all of this.
That was on my list.
That's another whole major subject area
Do me
that
a
affects
favor.
this.
Save that because it's
And I
on
will
my
let
list.
that go for you because that's going to be a mind-bending challenge. All right, thank you. I appreciate it, Jeff.
Mrs. David.
I was wondering if there is something that we can sponsor as a town to help bring supplies and things to the West Coast. I mean, they don't know exactly what they need at this point, but maybe we can do something to help. Because, you never know when it's you who needs the help. So you need to pay it forward.
Sister City?
Yeah, just something to show that we respect that they have major issues and we want to help.
Anybody got any ideas?
Mayor, if I could address a couple points.
Sure.
The Red Cross and the Governor's Fund and several others are just asking for money. It's very difficult to get transportation right now. Parts of I-90 or I-75 are closed due to rivers rising. So if anyone wants to help, they're asking for cash donations,
It's money.
credit card donations. Secondly, if I could address a couple points Commissioner Shoemaker brought up. The Spanish River Bridge was rehabbed about 3 years ago, and the Linton Bridge was rehabbed about 5 years ago. The Sanibel Bridge is low-lying, just an offshoot through the marshes and very sandy seafloor there.
Totally different.
I don't want our residents to think that our bridges are in peril should we get hit. I believe they're built to withstand way higher than a Cat 5. So I don't want to offer them any kind of a worry between now and the end of hurricane season or in the future. And lastly, A1A is built on a lot of very hard coral reef. The softest part of A1A, Jeff will know more about this, but we have the northern end of the town is on very, very solid rock. It's not going to go anywhere. And the rehab will seal and rectify any kind of a swale flooding problems. I think we're going to be fine in that respect. And lastly, the legislature's reconvening is still 5 months away. I've seen and talked to CFO Jimmy Petronas twice, and they already have drafts of insurance proposals, property tax proposals, and even business rentals. They'll double taxed. And this is, of course, before the storm, which will now change everything. So I think we just have to sit back and let everything take its course and address it in the fashion when it comes up. If
Okay.
that helps everyone.
Yep, so it's money.
Money.
Okay, anything else?
No,
Peg, you got anything else you want to add? Natasha?
Just sit tight and prepare our residents if we should need it in the interim.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Peggy was saying. I know I'm definitely guilty of when the track of the hurricane is, I don't know, a few miles away from where we are. And even though we're in a cone, I don't want to leave. I want to stay. And I think this recent example with Ian just really highlighted how important it is, to leave. So yeah, I think some sort of lessons learned. I think those, those are some really good tips. Maybe even being more specific on where to to evacuate to, the shelters. I know there's communication about shelters, but I don't know, maybe being a little bit more specific, like I would go here if I were you, I don't know, taking it one step further rather than just saying there are shelters,
Well,
I guess just.
I
being
mean,
more specific.
everybody should have a place lined up, whether it's a friend that lives out west or a hotel, or they plan to drive north, but they should have a plan and they should have a place to go.
They should,
I
But do
know
they?
they don't often,
Yeah.
but I
yeah,
mean, I don't see too many of our people going to shelters, okay? But
I know, yeah,
everybody should have a place. Plan.
yeah, yeah, so that's true. I absolutely agree. And for me personally, I feel like I'm solidifying my plan even more than I have been with that.
I see it in your face.
What would trigger that action plan is definitely a lower threshold than it was,
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
But yeah, like taking it that one step further is, definitely a concern. And then your comments, Mayor, about helping with the dunes and, mangrove, I think that's all really great. I was just reviewing it, what they have here. I wonder if taking it, like bringing the professionals in, like the DEP, I think maybe rather than relying on just the expertise of the national, the natural preservations for like helping them with getting professionals who, or maybe other towns that have been successful at.
That would be good if we could model it after.
Right,
that
after
would be
somebody else. So yeah, I'm in favor of that as well.
Yeah.
Because it would only help all of us for sure. So. That's
Anything
it.
else?
That's it.
Okay. I had one quick thing when we were all at the county commission meeting. They had all these resolutions. But I noticed that not just the mayor was doing it. They were kind of dividing it up and different commissioners were doing it. I kind of like that idea. Do we like that idea? Dividing it up and sharing it? So when
Very
there
much.
are a number of them to do, like to do that, okay? I also liked that they were framed, that they were in these little frames. Okay,
Mayor, part of that might be due to the fact they have districts they represent, so it could be regarding their geographical district. Where the awards have
you know
been.
what? That's interesting.
Yes, which we don't.
I
but
hadn't
we could still
noticed that
share
it was, but it might
Yes.
have been.
Whereas, yes, that's how they do it.
Could that have been it?
Yes. We can
It
still
was.
share in the
Okay.
glory of providing these if you'd like us to take some of the weight off.
Yeah,
That
it wasn't that I mean, I don't mind doing it. I just I liked that everybody was involved.
We can take turns.
Yeah, I just thought that was nice. And I liked the framing.
Sure, love framing.
Okay,
So you want yours framed?
Yeah, sure.
okay, on to the big subject of zoning. It's not an agenda item. I don't want to get into how do we zone, et cetera. I just wanted to get everybody starting to think about it. That was all. Yes, sir.
Just a point of procedure. Where are we on the agenda? Trying to help
We're
Vanelda with
going
recording.
through the town commission comments.
So I guess I thought we were still on item C. That's why I was.
That's why I
really
wanted to make sure
specific
we
to-
had a break in the
Yeah.
minutes, that we've transitioned from like a Hurricane Ian update
No.
Barrier Island
Yeah,
to commissioner comments.
We're finished with item C and we went over to John for commission comments.
Okay,
Oh,
all right, so we
we've been working
transitioned.
through
Okay,
the commission
I
comments.
thought I was on C.
okay.
No,
Have
you-
more?
You went through all your commissioner comments.
I got commissioner comments separate from that.
The items that you were talking about had nothing to do with.
Oh, no, absolutely not. The building certification, storms, A1A protection and dune protection. That's all. Ian.
We'll come back to you if you have more that
Okay.
needs to be discussed.
We're on commission comments.
Yes.
There it is.
Did you know that we were on commissioner comments?
No, I thought we were on C. I thought we
Oh,
were on the
okay,
hurricane preparedness. That's why I was focused
Okay,
on.
then I'll stand
um,
corrected. We'll go back. John, What do you have for commissioner comments?
Oh, okay. So I have scheduled with our town clerk a presentation to be made at our next town meeting by representatives who are experts in lightning protection. So hopefully we'll have a nice slide information orientation on what we can do. Now, it's kind of interesting. It kind of dovetails to Ian. I don't know if you saw it on the news, but one of the houses was hit by lightning. And of course, it burned to the ground because fire couldn't get to it.
Yeah,
right?
so
And what lightning protection do we have as a town? It's abysmal. So anyways, that's coming. And I think FPL has sent out a flyer on lightning protection as well. It's kind of interesting. So it'll all dovetail together. Lastly, as a town, you know, our goals, we talk about goals so often. And our vice president talked about Venn diagrams. So I want you to think about the circles, and the circles being police and fire, our building department, water and sewer, our town management, and those circles, but in the center with the town commission. I think what we're trying to do here as a total team is using financial prudence, establish an effective town team and stable government, and then make the improvements that are needed to ensure safety for our citizens. That's kind of, to me, what hit me when I look at all these towns and the difficulties they're having, both on the West Coast, obviously because of a storm, but on the East Coast because of acrimony and disagreement and dysfunction, okay? And I just thought that we should recognize that we're on that track. I think we're doing a good thing. I went back to and I pulled out town manager. Oh my goodness. So all the presentations on fire and all of the illustrations on what we're going to do with our design and effort. It just continues. It's kind of like I got a multitude of stuff. When are we going to resolve the design for the fire station? Because we got to start digging pretty soon, right? And are we going to get an update soon is my question.
yes, sir, you are.
So the answer is
Yes.
yes.
At the end of the commissioner comments, I will give you an update.
And in all of this, is all what I have here obsolete and I can throw away?
Everything we have properly documented and saved. So all that stuff has been in public record in our files. So you don't need to hold on unless for your
Okay.
own desire. Yes, if you want to just keep it in your study, it makes great reading.
I'm looking forward to your comments. And I didn't want you to think I forgot. And so again, this crew over here has done an outstanding job, and so have all of you. Thank you very much.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Peggy,
Just one thing, the hurricane issue became important because my brother took a direct hit at Cape Coral, 2 blocks off the ocean. So I want to add that if you do evacuate, it's helpful, as chiefs will inform us, to leave a plan. If you have a plan, leave written information in your kitchen or somewhere in a Ziploc bag. It could be safe. I evacuated, I'm here, or I need help, write it out on your roof, paint or whatever. But these were 2 issues that saved a lot of people. So we'll let the chiefs formalize this, and just, that's a very vital thing, I'm told from the West Coast people. Thank you very much for everyone's help.
Yeah, I mean, the lessons learned are so valuable, right? So I don't know if we can add that as an agenda item at some point when they're available, like maybe lessons learned from the West Coast, what went really well, what was disastrous. I think that would be really helpful.
And as that may have mentioned that too, and as far as lessons learned that we can put on our manager's minute.
Right.
Written down.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I guess the only update I have is they're finalizing reading the water meters and we'll have a full year's the next year's 12 months worth of billing. So we'll be able to do a really good comparison. I've been in touch with David. We plan to do a full blown analysis. The other thing I wanted to do, I was refreshing my memory on the Raftalist study. And, that was done a couple of years ago now. And, with 3% projections of annual projections, which seems so low right now. But I mean, we've had other change, pluses and minuses too. So, so previously I had been comparing our revenue projections to what Raftalist thought our revenue projections should be based on the expense assumptions that they had. But now, we have an updated budget and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be, I think, a more relevant projection when we, compare these revenues. So hopefully the plan is to get it actually in the agenda for the October 18th, rather than me doing it at the last minute like I always do, so that you guys have some time to review it. I thought the manager's minute was very informative, and I thought the story on Jeff was really good for the veterans section. So yeah, I think that manager's minute, manager's hour is very informative.
It's a little long. I
like it. It's a magazine, the manager's magazine. So yeah, I thought that was really good. So that's it.
I also had a note on the manager's minutes. It's the manager's month. Not minutes, but it was extremely well done this time. Not that others weren't good, but this one I thought was really exceptional. Very well done. So I wanted to chat a little bit about zoning, and not as an agenda item, don't want to get into a lot of depth, but I just kind of want to box it in a little bit so we can all start thinking about the different segments of it and how we want to approach it. Okay, so let me just hit a couple of extremes. Probably the first extreme is when the gentleman was here several months ago. He has a 3-unit townhome, 3 different townhomes, all built together. And he wanted to basically redo them, put 3 new ones up, but zoning doesn't allow him to do that. All he could do is put up 1 unit or a freestanding home. And it's on Russell Street, and Russell Street are all connecting units. They're all different kinds of townhomes. So first of all, a freestanding home would look kind of silly there. And I guess this place was probably built in the 70s. The town was rezoned, I think, in the early 90s, was it? And the two didn't mesh. So what one should do is say, yeah, go ahead, you can put up 3 new townhomes, but we can't do that. I guess that would be spot zoning. So under current zoning, guy's stuck. So that's a problem with our zoning.
Is that because spot zoning is illegal? I mean,
Yeah, you can't do
it
it.
is can't
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
US.
Otherwise, what happens is, here we are sitting, the 5 of us, deciding you can do this and you can do that. No, you can't do it, but he can do it. That's wrong. So another issue that may come up, a 8-story building is going to require $12 million worth of work to be done, but the building is only worth $18 million, and the owners say, I'm going to put that much money in it, so we want to sell it to a developer. The developer is interested in buying it because he wants to put another mid-rise up, but zoning doesn't allow him to put that up. You can only put up 3 or 4 townhomes on that property. And I'm just kind of making it up as I'm going along. So it doesn't work for that either. So what we have to do is think about how we want this town to be. And the town is really made up of a number of different types of living structures. And that's kind of the beauty of the town. What's lovely is you drive down A1A, you see big mansions, you see nice townhomes, you see lots of different types of living areas, and you see high rises and mid rises. So Do we want to think about density? Do we want to increase the density in the town? Do we not want to increase the density in the town? For example, this 8-story building. Do we want that to maybe go to 12 stories? Well, what's the problem with the 8-story going to 12 stories if it doesn't affect anybody's views? Let's say it's on the west side. Don't think there's any problem with that. Well, geez, that just increased the value significantly. Now a developer can either put more units in or put bigger units in. Or we say, you can rebuild what's there. Or we don't do anything. We say, no, you can't rebuild what's there. You can put in the 4 townhomes and leave it alone. So there's lots of things to think about. The other thing is we could think about districts. So the whole town doesn't have to be zoned the same way. Russell Street might be its own little district. And on Russell Street, we do A, and on Bellito, we do B. That zoning is for houses, single family homes, and whatever the zoning is right now, we may say it's fine, leave it alone. So we could approach it a lot of different ways. So I'm just leaving it as think about the town and the way the town is now and how we want it long term. And the other thing is, how do we even want to attack the thing? Do we want to attack it through the planning board? We want the planning board to form some committees with some residents to come in and have them work in groups. It's a huge assignment and it's got to last a long time. Therefore, we got to put a lot of time into it as well. That's all. You wanted to say something, Marshall?
Well, I know Ingrid's been doing a lot of background, so we could bring it back as an agenda. I'd let her kick off her background research that she's found in other adjacent communities. And then you guys could formulate your plan. Let's go to the planning board, have them work on these issues of where their heads at, and then start that back and forth process. So we're ready to go to start that. You just let us know when you want to start it now, next month, beginning of the year. You just let it, we're ready to go.
And I'd like to get some residents into the process as well. So that way we have people from different communities and see what their thinking is. Now, I don't know that we have to be involved in all of that, not suggesting that, but I don't know. Maybe we need to put it on it as an agenda item to talk about how we attack it. Okay, do we agree with that?
So I agree, but should I comment? And to add to your comments, some of the things that come to my mind that would be top of your mind at some point. When you talk about density, it's not just, okay, we can increase the height of the building and, you know, that would be fine. But when you add families, you add density in terms of traffic, schools, you know, services for those, that increased population. So the question then is, do we keep Highland Beach as it is today, pretty much plus or minus maybe 1,000 people? And that any buildings that need to be replaced, we replace them in kind? Or as you're saying, and the problem I think might be if we have a 20-story condo and it needs to be scraped for whatever reason. We've gotten to the point where you can't rehab it anymore and, you know, we've condemned it or whatever it might be. A builder might say, well, I'm not going to replace that with the same 20-story building or 12-story building. I need to go to 30, otherwise I can't make money. And then it becomes a blight situation, right? Nobody wants to replace it unless there's some profit in it for them.
Well, I totally disagree with you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm saying it's just a consideration. I'm not.
Well, I think it's definitely a consideration.
And it's a view of some people in the town.
I understand that. And I didn't say that that's what we should do. I said that's what we should think about.
Absolutely. And that's all.
I also said that we might just say, no, whatever the building size is, you can build to that size. That's one thing we might come out with. We might come out with, no, we're not changing it, period. And that building comes down and 4 townhomes go in.
Yeah.
And that's it. You just terribly devalued
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I don't think I would go for that.
That's for sure.
But you can also put a height restriction in, period, and say nothing goes higher than X. You can do a lot of things. So I don't think we jump at anything.
No, but I'm suggesting that this is some of the research that I think I'd like to ask that Ingrid do relative to what have towns done when they have a 10-story building and it needs to be replaced?
Yep.
I mean, do they find, oh, yeah, contractors are loving to go after replacing that without doubling the
Well,
price?
John, time out. You're jumping way ahead. We want to put it on an agenda item to start talking about these things. We don't want to talk about them now. It's not an agenda item.
No, but she could do a little research on that, no?
Well,
She has.
I don't want us to get into it because we didn't put it on the agenda.
Oh,
Okay, I just introduced the subject to say I'd like to put it on the agenda so we can start talking about it. It's unfair to get into any kind of discussion about it because nobody out there knew that we were going to talk about it.
okay,
So I
I
don't
can't
want,
talk about
so you're jumping ahead.
okay.
That's all. It's a very exciting subject. Okay, but it's unfair to the residents that have an interest in it. Otherwise, they would have watched the meeting
Or
come to it.
for a meeting that is going to be scheduled, now there's notice.
That's a different story.
And I think we need to be prepared for that meeting as well.
Okay.
That's my only point.
My only comment would be if we should, and I mean, I think we should have time, but if we should look at the strategic plan and see if there are any things that are a higher priority that we need to be addressing. Because to be honest, I haven't looked at the strategic plan in a while, so I don't, and when do we do that?
Do we just pay you for that? You guys are setting up my entire conversation.
Basically,
that
we're
would be
asking
my-
her to post, to see if she can do any modeling on what other towns have done and whatever specifics she
sure.
can pull out. That would be very helpful. And that covers what you're asking for.
And we want to be careful that we don't devalue anything. Because if you're only allowed to put up 4 townhouses where there's an 8-story apartment building,
Yeah, that's
then
that's
they're,
what's unfair about it.
right, then they become valueless.
Right.
And we don't want to do that.
So at the next meeting, we'll discuss our approach to this whole
We'll
thing.
start it
We'll
officially. Okay.
We'll have it on the agenda. Anybody that's interested, come to the meeting. They'll have plenty of time to add their thinking to it.
Mayor, I would like to add that we should have any kind of a report available regarding our infrastructure and adding new residents, traffic and buildings to what we have now. If our infrastructure can handle, if we have anything in data currently available to us.
I'm not sure that I'm following that. You meaning if we added 500 people to the town, what would that do to our traffic pattern?
We have past reports. Well, you've got the middle turn lanes to some buildings and others could have used them and don't, crosswalks.
The big one for us would be water and sewer. A1A
Water
can
and
handle it, but
sewer.
water and sewer, like, can we
We do have-
supply that? But yes, we
do
could
have
do that.
previous reports available, just asking for them to be available.
Bridge to,
I mean, we're so far away from capacity is,
the bridge to Bellito falls into the.
It's not gonna
you know
fall
what
into
I
the
would like to
ocean.
know? What I would like to know, and it really doesn't have anything to do with this, is of all the cars that traverse A1A here, what percent of them live in Highland Beach? And I think we should be shocked at what small percentage that is.
As he looks directly at the chief. Stop and question every one of those cars going through.
Well, you could find out real easily because we've got a camera that takes the license plate.
Okay, and
But
if you-
it's just a nice to know.
if you find
tiny.
out, what are you going to do about it?
Well, it's going to tell you.
It's a
that-
state road. We can't stop people.
Non-residents do
from
not enter.
driving on it.
No, it would tell you that if we added 25% to our population, what that would do to our traffic pattern.
Okay,
Okay. That takes care of what I had. What do you have, Marshall?
Wow. We covered a lot of topics. So strategic priorities, I'll start there. I know Teresa's been working on that. We're updating it. I hear a few new projects that I believe aren't on there or fully defined in the strategic priorities. We will add those in. This is about the time when we bring it back to start looking at what we've accomplished. List is pretty amazing. So kudos to you all. A lot of work's getting done. And then how do we want to refocus moving forward to make sure our resources are applied to those strategies or strategic priorities and initiatives you want completed.
Yeah, let's make sure that we're not jumping into zoning and pushing something back that's important. So
Yep. And
now's the
again,
time
you
to look
know,
at that for sure.
we've started some basic stuff, but where you all are at as far as for me from a procedural and process orientation, I love it. You guys are really coming to this dark side of public engagement and due process and getting everybody involved. So you guys are all over this. So we will get those in, and you know, if not at the next meeting, the one after, we'll have the strategic priorities, at least share ahead of time. So you guys could start taking a closer look at, so you can start doing your own notes and programming and what you want to do. And then
It's probably time to add a few things.
yeah, I've got a few on here that I've heard today that need to be added on there.
Good.
So that's good. I'm glad with Chief's presentation, you started hearing concepts of benchmarking and continuous improvement. Not that you haven't heard that in your careers. I get it, but things that we are deploying, and it's nice at times to be the benchmark for a small community policing agency. So that's always good to hear. Fire station, right? This is our next big push. So we've been having a few more meetings, wrestling down the architect and the contractor. So Kaufman Lynn, PGAL, we're getting there. I would probably think we're there. We had a last few dimensional looks that we wanted to change. To let you know, we're giving a stronger look to the second floor. The footprints there, incremental space compared to the stuff I was saying, remodeling all this other space. There's probably some efficiency of the resource and dollars to at least get it all together. So we're looking at that right now. Kaufman Lynn's penciling that out to what that cost is. So the architect gave me a commitment that they should have something to share with you on the 18th as far as elevations. You won't have the 28 pages of details on electrical, but you'll have conceptually what it'll look like, the layout, all the input from Chief Joseph as to how do we function, how do we make that space work. So we're just about there, and we should have that done on the 18th, because I would like to get some board mounted materials with your direction and guidance for the food truck event, so people can kind of have those, oh, that's interesting type moments. We have to have them, so they will be done. They did express some concerns to us, just as we need a little more of it, that Hurricane Ian may put a little bit of supply pressure on us for certain materials as they rebuild the Southwest. It could cause some additional constraints. I don't know, but they're seeing that, especially on like pine and some certain building materials. Not that we use a lot of wood materials, but that could put some slowing with Kaufman Lynn. But we're doing a really good job. We got the layout that I think works. It gets us the space, gets us admin, captures the grant for the EOC in that building, so we can apply those dollars directly to it. So we have a true, after hearing Hurricane Ian, a emergency response center that to properly respond and assist couldn't be more critical at this point. So those items are all tied together. So on the 18th, if not before, I'll share with you, but officially to the public, start looking at published documents on the 18th, some schematics, elevations, so you all could start putting your fingerprints all over it, tweaking it a little bit, asking the right questions. And then I continually wrestle with the contractor to keep that price into the appropriate level. So, Chief, you got anything else to add to that, you think, on the station stuff? That's pretty much where we're at. The generic first floor footprints layout, it hasn't really changed. It's just putting the top on it, putting that second floor in there, I think will really work. And then that'll free up that whole station for something that we had all initially explored. We'll bring all that back as a secondary project, focus on getting that station up and going. We should take delivery soon of the ambulance, or what is the other one that, so that's, yeah, the transport. So that should be coming in. We're putting the final details on the design of the unit, what that'll look, so we can throw that to you all to see, which basically come in as like a big white bread truck, right? So Chief Joseph's trying to get the logos and stuff and properly situated and numbering and all that stuff on the unit. So that's in place, working to get the second ladder apparatus. So we've let Del Rey know further that we plan to take all our equipment back. So they're on board with that. So all of those pieces are falling in line, along with all the operational details that Chief Joseph's working on a day-to-day basis, starting to put all those next pieces together, if you will. So again, if you haven't read any of our emails, haven't read the manager's minutes, September 13th was amazing. We were able to get our COCPN. So we are on our way to be fully operational department. So we have the ability to operate and do ALS and BLS, advanced and basic life support transports. We can do all of that come May of 24. Chief's working on getting all the other like FDID numbers and state approval. So that for the fire side of the house, putting that in place. So moving right along. So sure.
I had a question. So what is entailed in getting the state approval for the fire side? It's easier, a lot easier.
It's not as rigorous as the COPCN.
Wow.
So we have to get some policy procedures written up, which we're working on now. We have to adopt some of the county SOPs, standard operating procedures, which we're in the process of doing. And we'll have an inspection. So we have to get all the equipment on our roster set up, and then they come in and inspect, and then they'll tell you, yeah, you're good to go.
And then at what point in time do you get that rating, that ISO rating? Is that down the road or?
That's a separate event. So
Okay.
ISO, the Insurance Service Organization, is a group out of Jacksonville, actually, and they come in and they rate fire departments based on the ability to do fire suppression, only fire suppression. There's another accreditation process that does fire and EMS, but for right now, ISO does only fire. They look at your water supply, they look at your equipment, personnel, how many people get on scene in a certain amount of time, and then they use that to rate how well your community is protected against fire. And that's usually, they do it every 4 to 6 years, thereabouts. And we will not probably address that until probably after we get up and running, maybe a year or two, get all of our personnel in place. And because you need to have at least 3 years of data.
So you have to have experience
Yeah,
in order for them to rate you.
Correct.
They don't do it prospectively. You have,
Right.
it has to be based on
Retrospective.
experience. Okay.
So they look at your data and then make the assessment based on that.
So then what happens? The fire department just has no ISO rating for the first 3 years?
Just about, yeah. Yeah. Most, a lot of departments don't opt out because it's, well, let's say that it's becoming less relevant since we have other ways of assessing community risk reduction beyond ISO. So it's becoming less relevant, although, and they say a lot of insurance companies use them, not all of them do, and it's a very small percentage. So it's people are doing it because of the status, bragging rights, if you will. And yeah, we will probably do it down the road, but it's not something that has to be done right away. I think accreditation is a lot more important, although you need to ISO evaluation to do accreditation. So we'll do one in lockstep to make sure we get the right assessments and the right accolades
Mhm.
on our system.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, we're right on schedule, moving along. And again, next meeting, we'll have the building renderings. Again, for those that don't know, haven't heard, it's going to be between here and the Public Works building. So that is the desired location, cost effective. It'll look nice. It'll blend into the facility. So everything is still moving on. Budget for the most part on target. I mean, cost of construction, of course, as we all know, has gone more than we initially anticipated, but nonetheless, we're still operating within the authorization from the town. So we're still in great shape.
Good, thank you. Couple quick things. For the meeting on the 18th, I'd like to have the chairperson from the Natural Resources Board join us.
Okay,
and ask that person to give us an update. Because I know at their upcoming meeting, they're reviewing their whole Dunes program.
sure.
So ask that person to give us an update on the program.
All right.
Okay. And Jeff, while you're here, can you give us an update on Gulfstream, how that's going?
Gulfstream. That's good.
So I shared some numbers with you, which I don't have in my head
Yeah, just,
right now. I do have one number, and
Just-
that is
just is it going well? And
it's going
any
extremely
hiccups?
well.
You know,
It's going
okay.
extremely well. All the hiccups we had in the beginning are ironed out, and we're doing pretty good. It's working extremely well right now. The revenue is higher than expected initially for the first month, and the inspections are less than we were anticipating,
Oh,
which
really?
is really kind of a good situation right there. But as the permits are issued, we're going to start seeing those inspections start to pick up. But so far, it's been really good. The communication has been good. The software program has been good, and we're just constantly tweaking things, and it's working great.
Great. Okay. Anybody have any questions, Jeff, on it?
Response times, has that been a problem at all in any way? Response times in terms of and how long it takes to get somebody out there to inspect?
Well, nothing's changed than what it's been. If as long as you request your inspection by 3:30 PM, you have an inspection the next day.
Okay, so there's no issues with that?
No issues at all with that at all.
And you said you had a number that you wanted.
Well, the one number that is that, we were running approximately anywhere from 7 to 10 days turnaround time. Once we had a complete permit that was good, the amount of time that they were waiting for us to do plan review and approve it and get it out was 7 days. And now with the staff that we have on board with Gulfstream, that is now 3. It's 2.65. So I make it 3
Whoa.
days.
That's a huge factor. Oh, outstanding.
I challenge anybody when you meet other commissioners at our meetings to ask them how long it takes for new construction to get your plan review on submission. And we're at 3 days. It's unheard of.
But that's the point. It's plan review. It's after the permit application is filled in properly, which
Correct.
is what takes up most of the time, is getting all the correct information so that it can in fact be reviewed.
Yeah, so we can do the technical review, correct?
Okay. Anybody? We're good? Thanks, Jeff. Anybody have anything else before we call it a day? Okay, at 3:07, we will adjourn. Thank you all.